Welcome to the Hornets Hivecast, presented by Charlotte Eye, Ear, Nose, and Throat Associates, the official eye, ear, nose, and throat care provider of the Charlotte Hornets. Here's your host, Sam Farber.
Our guest today, Hornets forward, Gordon Hayward. Gordon, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Gordon, it's your 14th season in the NBA. How does that sound to you?
It sounds pretty crazy, to be honest. I mean, it goes by so fast. So for it to already be year 14, it's it's a blessing for sure. You got to be grateful for all the moments that you have out there on the court, and I've had quite a few.
Eric Collins, the television play-by-play broadcaster for the Hornets, he hit me with a trivia question that concerned you, and I got it wrong. I'm wondering if you'll get it right. How many people in your draft class, 2010 draft class, are actively playing right now?
Actively playing right now, I'm going to go with 3.
Close.
Now that we have Ish. How many is it?
It's 2. Ish, I guess, was not in the draft class, or at least not from Eric's point of view.
Gotcha.
It was you and Paul George. I mean, 14 years, it's obviously it's a long time.
Yeah.
But is it surprising that it's that low of a number?
It is a little bit. I mean, I think it's, the one thing about this league is that there's lots of turnover every year. I mean, there's so many talented players that come up. And so you're constantly competing for a job, and you got to take care of yourself if you want to last. And it's pretty cool that me and Paul are kind of the last 2 left. I'll include Ish in there as well because he was our same draft class. But we've been intertwined throughout our careers. Started with the same agency. Both have had pretty gruesome injuries. And so I think for us to be still playing, it's pretty cool.
That injury piece of it speaks to the perseverance it takes to play in the NBA. Obviously, both of you have been stars. You could have easily said, all right, I've made a lot of money. I've had a lot of success on the court. I've had my moment. And you could have not put in the effort to get back on the floor. What is it about the game and your love of it that keeps you coming back?
Yeah, it's a game that I've loved since I was 4 years old. And, it's you don't want to have your career end that way for sure. Took a lot of time and energy and effort to get back, but, proud of being able to fight through that. And I also think when you have kids, you want to show them and teach them some things, and you want them to be able to see you go back out there and play and fight through things and persevere and pick yourself up, fight through adversity. And so they were certainly a huge inspiration for me.
And now you have the opportunity to play in front of your kids and have them actually be able to remember it and identify you out there on the floor. How does that feel compared to when you're starting and you're really just playing for yourself?
Right. It's everything. Seeing them enjoying themselves during the game, talking to me during the week about games that they're excited to go to. It's everything. And the best part about it is they don't really care how I did individually, whether I had 50 points, whether I had 0 points. They just cared that I was there and that I get to go home with them and be dad. And, that puts everything in perspective.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a wonderful thing. 14 years, a long time. The game has changed quite a bit. The draft class before you, Steph Curry comes into the NBA, the Splash Brothers eventually take over, and it really revolutionized the way that the NBA game at least was played. How different does it feel for you as a player on the floor, the game itself, from your rookie year, your first couple of years to now?
Yeah, it's so different. And Marvin Williams, who works with us at the Hornets, we talk about it all the time, how different the game is. And, I'm sure it'll change within the next 10, 15 years as well, with new guys coming in and new ways to play and new schemes. And certainly Steph was probably one of the main factors of how the game changed as far as just increasing range and shooting more threes. And I think the skill has gotten so much better across the board. Not that there weren't skilled players when I first came in, but it's I think top to bottom, 1 through 15, it's way more skilled, and guys are able to handle the basketball, able to shoot threes, able to spread the court. When I first came in, it was double bigs, 2 post players. Usually you had the point guard who was handling it the most, and then you had the guys on the wings that were really cutting off floppy, cutting in transition, slashing, not really handling as much. And now you'll have teams that'll have 4 guys that can handle and play pick and roll, and only one big generally that's down there, and even that big will step out and shoot a 3. So the game's a lot more spread out, a lot further from the basket. And it is amazing to think about where it's come.
From a skill standpoint, what is it about you that's allowed you to remain a high-profile player, a starter throughout these different eras?
Well, I think I've got relatively good size for my position, and so I can spread the floor, I can handle it, so I can do just a little bit of everything, and I think that translates. It fits both at both of those eras.
There's also the mental aspect of the game, and that's something when we've talked before that really fascinates about you is how you think about the game and approach it almost like a puzzle, it seems at times, finding areas that are deficient within how defenses are approaching you and things that you can take advantage. How much of that has allowed you to find the places in the game where you can be at your best?
Yeah, I mean, the mental side of the game is a huge part of basketball, is figuring out how you can be effective, how the defense is guarding you, where you can find your spots on the floor. It allows you sometimes to not have to use athleticism or speed or quickness, just use your mind to get to where you want to go, draw fouls, get other guys open, get shots for your teammates. I mean, basketball is not just an athletic game. I mean, it's so mental, and there's so many parts of it that you have to be prepared for, and you're looking at scouting and seeing, knowing your personnel on the other team, and certainly has been a huge part of me being able to stay in the league this long.
Figuring out those puzzles seems to be something that's kind of a through line for you in your competitions, your hobbies. You're also an avid chess player.
Yeah. You're
a gamer. How does that way of looking at games, at the world, kind of carry through for everything you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a competitor, and so being able to compete in video games and compete in chess is a lot of fun, and I think as technology has grown, you're able to do that on your phone, on the bus, and so much of the free time that we have. But certainly there's similarities between these video games and chess and basketball, and I just spoke a little bit about reading the defense, and you do that same exact thing in chess, where you're thinking about how they're going to prevent moves that you're making, or what moves you can make in 3 moves later that'll work. Same thing in basketball, and you see that more than anything in the playoffs with coaches and schemes and how they want to guard things, whether they're switching or not. And coaches think that the team's going to switch, so they have a certain adjustment that they can make to get an open shot, and then the other coach, they think that the other coach is going to switch, and so they're switch. I mean, it's a big game of chess, especially, like I said, when you play somebody in a 7-game series. And so I think that's always fun to watch and be a part of.
Is that something you notice in many of your other teammates? Because for a lot of guys, it's instinctual what they do out on the floor, and there's obviously a lot of study and a lot of programming done by coaches and staff, and I'm sure players as well. But is that something maybe more unique to you than the average NBA player?
Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly some guys are way more instinctual than they are cerebral. I think that be more and more cerebral. Certainly I didn't come into the NBA knowing all the things that I do now, but I've always been that type of a player. So it's a little bit easier, I think, for me to pick up. But the instinctual part of the game is something that is necessary and unique as well. When somebody just has great instincts and they're just able to go out there and hoop and do what they do, I mean, that's a huge part of basketball too. So I mean, you need both to be one of the greats.
One player who feels like that, just has that feel for the game, instinctual, is your teammate Lamelo Ball. When you came here to Charlotte, he was a rookie. You were kind of the established star, and now the roles, I wouldn't say have flipped, but Lamelo has kind of come into his own and playing alongside you and really starting to put his imprint on the team. You played with some spectacular players. In terms of talent, where does Lamelo rank?
Yeah, LaMelo's right up there at the top. I mean, he is the epitome of an instinctual player, and you can just see it when he's out there on the court. I mean, he just hoops, and he's somebody that I think, from a talent perspective, has been really impressive to watch him. He uses both hands really well, both his left hand and his right hand, whether it's passing, whether it's finishing around the rim, with his left-handed layups, right-handed layups, dribbling. A lot of players can go one way really well and not the other. I mean, he can go both ways, and I think that's something that is pretty rare, especially when you're young and coming into the league. But he certainly has been fun to watch, fun to play with. I think he's only going to get better. Like I said, I think over the course of his career, he'll get more cerebral and get more the ability to think the game as well as just going out there and playing. But he is certainly one of my favorite teammates.
You've also got a special rookie with you now in Brandon Miller, who in many ways seems to resemble you in your game in that he doesn't make mistakes, or he doesn't make silly mistakes. I mean, everyone occasionally will throw a bad pass or have a misread, but he seems to really identify advantages on the floor in similar ways to you. Do you see that in his game? Yeah,
I do, and that's been really impressive to see how he is somebody that I think is thinking the game, and at a young age to be able to come in and play at his own pace and not get put in a hurry, not get rushed. He plays in the pocket really well. I think he's going to have a really, really long career in the NBA. I think he's going to be really good. His athletic ability alone will make that happen, but it's the other parts that I'm talking about that will separate him from the pack, and he'll only get better.
You were a consistent contributor as a rookie right from the jump, but you really didn't become a full-time starter until I think year 2 or year 4. You were really one of the established
I actually
players.
Didn't play at all my rookie year, basically until we made a trade about, maybe like 3/4 of the way through. We traded Darren Williams, and we kind of decided that we were going to go young, and that's when I really started playing. But for the first part of my career, I was, I didn't dress a couple games, DMPs, you're just sitting there waiting to go in. But then year 2, year 3 is when I really started to kind of get more of an established role for sure.
To see Brandon doing this from day one, what does that speak to in terms of his ceiling? Obviously, you have achieved all-star status. You're, year 14. It's rare amongst your class. What does it say about his potential that he's where he is now?
Sure. I mean, the sky's the limit with him. He's got great size, like I said, length, athletic ability, but it's his feel for the game that I think is already really high, and these experiences that he's getting right now playing will only make him better. I've always said you can't teach experiences. You just have to go through them, and so I think he's just these moments that he's getting right now will ultimately help them when he's in year 14 and beyond.
You three are obviously major pieces of the puzzle here for the Charlotte Hornets. You've been on playoff teams before. Does this feel like a playoff roster?
I think, if we're able to be fully healthy, for sure. And we've been hit with the injury bug the last 3 years, and that's unfortunate. But I think the amount of talent that we have on this team, we got to just put these pieces together and make sure that we're playing on the same page. And if we do that, we'll be a playoff team.
Every level of your career, you seem to have had a moment. I read in high school you made a game-winning buzzer beater to win a state championship. It's like your last shot as a high school player. That's true?
Right. That's right, yeah.
Obviously had another moment like that in college, one of the more iconic runs and memorable runs in the history of the NCAA tournament. You played 14 years. You've had a ton of success. Have you had your moment as a pro yet that will be that signature one, or is there a shot you're anticipating you'll take at some point this year or beyond that'll define your NBA career?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I'll have another couple shots here in my career that could be considered my moment. I think it's something for others to say. I'm just trying to live in the moment, pun intended, and try to just make the most of each one that I get.
We're looking forward to seeing that moment with your family, your kids,
right.
and witnessing something special, hopefully, upon the end of this season. It's happened here in Buzz City. Gordon Hayward, appreciate you joining us here today on the Hornets Hivecast.
All right, thank you.
That does it for this edition of the Hornets Hivecast. Remember, the HHC is available daily wherever you get your podcasts, all throughout the NBA season, with game previews every game day, reviews every day after, and in-depth interviews everywhere in between. I'm Sam Farber. It's been a pleasure and a privilege having you along, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Hornets Hivecast.
Thank you for listening to the Hornets Hivecast, brought to you by Senta, the official eye, ear, nose, and throat care provider of the Charlotte Hornets. For more coverage, visit hornets.com.